Well, I remember when I turned 75, and I couldn't help but think about what everyone always says about that age. People start to look at you differently. It's as if the world expects you to slow down and start winding things up. You hear all these stories about how, after 75, things start falling apart. Maybe it's arthritis setting in, or your heart doesn't pump the way it used to, or even your bones begin to ache more than you remember. I'd seen it happen to so many friends. One by one, they started disappearing from the circle, either from health problems or just because they had given up on taking care of themselves. It was around that time I really started to think about my own future. I had lived a good life, full of hard work, joy, and loss, but I wasn't ready to just fade away. There was something inside me that said, wait a minute, this doesn't have to be the end of the road. There's still plenty of life left in me, and I couldn't help but wonder why some folks at 75 and beyond seemed to just thrive, while others seemed to fall apart. What was the difference? Was it fate, luck, or was there something we could control? I had a good friend, Bill, who was in his 70s when I first started really paying attention to what was going on around me. Bill had been a strong, active guy, the kind of man who worked hard all his life and never complained. But when he hit 75, he just stopped. He stopped moving, stopped eating right, stopped socializing. One day, we were sitting on his porch talking about old times, and he said to me, I should have done more, stayed more active. But by then, it was too late. His body had started shutting down. He didn't make it past 7. That was a wake-up call for me. I didn't want to end up like Bill. I didn't want to get to the point where I looked back with regret, wishing I had done things differently. So I decided to take action. I knew that I couldn't change my age, but I could change how I lived in these later years. And what I realized after a lot of trial and error is that there's one simple, powerful thing we can do, something that could change everything. The action that determines our fate in these years is not about genetics or luck. It's about the choices we make every day, especially when it comes to our health. That's what I want to share with you today. The action that will determine whether you live past 75 with vitality or become just another statistic. You see, it's not too late for any of us to make a difference. Let me tell you a bit more about my old friend Bill, because his story really stayed with me. Bill was one of those guys who was always on the go. He worked hard every day, whether it was at the factory or fixing things around the house. He was the kind of man who didn't sit still, always moving, always doing. But when he hit 75, something changed. It wasn't just a little thing. It was as if he suddenly gave himself permission to slow down. He started spending more time on the couch, complaining about his back or his knees, or how he didn't have the energy he used to. At first, I thought it was just the natural course of aging. After all, I'd seen it happen to other folks. But then, something started to happen. As Bill's physical health declined, so did his mental health. He stopped visiting friends, stopped attending church, and eventually stopped going to the grocery store. He would call me once in a while, but it wasn't the same. The man who used to light up a room with stories and laughter was now quiet, distant, and withdrawn. I could see it in his eyes. He wasn't just dealing with aches and pains. He was struggling with something deeper. A kind of resignation had set in. What's the point of trying, he would say. It was as if he had just accepted that his life was over, and the only thing left was waiting for the inevitable. As I watched this unfold, I began to wonder, could this happen to me? I had always been the type to stay active, to keep busy, but there was that nagging thought in the back of my mind. Maybe I was fooling myself too. Maybe when I hit 75, I'd just start slowing down without realizing it. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized that Bill wasn't just dealing with physical ailments. No, the real issue was that he had stopped moving, physically and mentally. He had stopped taking care of himself, and that's what made everything else fall apart. It was a tough realization, but it gave me the wake-up call I needed. It wasn't just about the aging body, it was about what you did with that body as the years passed. If you don't move it, if you don't challenge yourself to stay active, you can end up in a downward spiral before you even realize it. It's easy to think that aging is something that just happens to you, that you're powerless against it, but that's not true. There's a big difference between accepting aging and resigning to it. Aging doesn't have to mean giving up. It means adjusting your habits to take care of yourself better than ever. Bill's story wasn't the end of the road for me, it was a lesson. And the biggest lesson I learned from watching him is that staying active, both physically and mentally, is the key to keeping your health and spirit alive as you age. You have a choice in the matter, and the sooner you realize that, the better off you'll be. When I made the decision to change the way I was living, I started with something simple, walking. At first, it didn't seem like much, just a short stroll around the block every day. I wasn't trying to win any marathons or impress anyone with my speed. I was simply trying to move. I remember those first few days, how stiff my legs felt, how winded I got after only a few minutes. But there was something inside me that kept saying, stick with it, just keep moving. And that's exactly what I did. I kept putting one foot in front of the other, day after day. It wasn't about how far I could go or how fast. It was about showing up for myself. Over time, I started to feel a change. It wasn't immediate, mind you, but after a couple of weeks, I noticed something. My joints didn't ache as much. I had more energy during the day, and I started sleeping better at night. Little by little, the walk became a habit, and that habit became a foundation for other healthy choices in my life. I didn't realize it at the time, but that one small act of walking was doing wonders for my being. It was keeping my heart strong, my blood circulating, and my muscles from stiffening up. I felt more alive than I had in years, and that was the beginning of a bigger transformation. What I learned through that experience is something that's so simple, yet so often overlooked. Consistency is what matters most. It's not about pushing yourself to your limits, it's about showing up for yourself every single day. I've seen too many people get caught up in the idea that they have to do something extreme to make a difference. But the truth is, you don't need to run 5 miles or lift heavy weights to get the benefits of movement. You just need to move, whether it's walking, stretching, gardening, or even just standing up and sitting down a few times. It all counts. The key is to make it a daily habit. That consistency has ripple effects. Once I started moving, I felt better, which gave me the energy to do more. I wasn't just walking anymore. I was doing light stretches, lifting a few weights, doing exercises that kept my body limber. And the more I did, the more I felt like myself again. It wasn't about some huge transformation. It was the gradual buildup of daily actions that added up to something bigger than I expected. So, my friends, don't wait for the perfect moment or the perfect exercise routine. Just start. Whatever it is, walking, stretching, dancing, even doing some housework, get your body moving. That's the first step toward better health, and it's the one that makes all the difference. The secret isn't in doing something extreme, it's in doing anything, every day. When I look back at the changes I made, I realized that it wasn't just my body that needed attention, it was my mind too. And the older I get, the more I understand how deeply the two are connected. You see, I didn't just have physical aches and pains. I also had moments when my spirit felt heavy. Losing friends, the passing of loved ones, and the inevitable feeling of loneliness can take a toll on you, especially when you get older. It's easy to feel like the world is moving on without you. And when that happens, you can end up withdrawing from the very things that keep you engaged in life: people, activities, hobbies. I had a moment, not long after Mary passed, when I found myself sitting alone more and more. I'd read the newspaper, watch a little TV, maybe take a walk here and there, but it wasn't enough. I was feeling lost, disconnected from the world. And that's when I remembered what Mary always told me. If you don't take care of your mind, you're not really taking care of yourself. She was right. She always had this spark in her, even when times were tough. She kept her mind sharp by reading, by engaging in new ideas, and by keeping in touch with friends. And as I look back now, I see how important it was for her. Staying mentally active was as much a part of her health as taking care of her body. So, I made the decision to take charge of my mind too. I started reading again, not just the same old books, but things that challenged me, that made me think. I picked up a few puzzles and games that exercised my brain. But perhaps the most important thing I did was to reconnect with people. I had been so focused on my own grief that I'd stopped reaching out to my friends. But I remembered how much joy I used to get from a simple conversation over coffee or a quick game of cards. So I made an effort. I started calling old friends, joining a local group for lunch, and simply showing up for people. And you know what? It worked. The more I stayed connected with others, the better I felt. I noticed my mood lifting, my energy coming back, and my sense of purpose returning. The simple act of socializing, of sharing stories and laughter, became a huge part of my well-being. I also started volunteering at the community center, helping others, and offering advice when I could. That sense of purpose, of being needed, made a world of difference. Taking care of your mind is just as important as taking care of your body. Don't let yourself slip into isolation. Stay curious, stay engaged, and stay connected. It keeps you sharp, it keeps you young, and it keeps you moving forward in life, no matter how old you get. When I first started thinking seriously about how to take better care of myself, I knew I needed to pay attention to what I was putting in my body. I wasn't always the best about it. If I'm honest, I used to eat whatever I felt like, whether it was a big juicy steak, a greasy fried chicken, or a slice of pie for dessert after every meal. I didn't think much about it at the time, but as I got older, I noticed something. I was starting to feel sluggish. My energy wasn't what it used to be. I'd get winded just walking up the stairs, and I felt more tired than I should have, even after a good night's sleep. Something wasn't right, and I started to wonder if my diet was playing a part. At first, I didn't want to face it. After all, I was a man who grew up with the idea that you eat what's put in front of you. But deep down, I knew I needed to make some changes if I wanted to feel better and live longer. So, I started making small adjustments. I didn't want to do anything extreme, but I realized that I needed to eat more fruits and vegetables, lean proteins, and whole grains. I started adding more greens to my plate, cutting back on red meats, and focusing on foods that gave me energy rather than weighed me down. It wasn't about following some strict diet, but about making better choices, little by little. One of the biggest changes I made was to reduce the processed foods I was eating. The canned soups, sugary snacks, and frozen dinners were quick and easy, but they weren't giving me what my body needed. Once I started cooking more at home, I noticed a huge difference. I felt more energized, my digestion improved, and I even noticed that my mood lifted. The more I focused on whole foods, vegetables, fruits, fish, and chicken, the better I felt. I wasn't eating perfectly, but I was eating smarter. Another thing I had to learn was the importance of hydration. I didn't realize it until I started feeling more fatigued than usual, but dehydration was sneaking up on me. I wasn't drinking enough water. I used to have my coffee in the morning and maybe a soda here and there, but I wasn't paying attention to how much water I was getting. Once I made sure I was drinking more water throughout the day, I felt a noticeable improvement. I had more energy, less brain fog, and my joints didn't feel as stiff. Eating right doesn't have to be a burden or a sacrifice. It's about making mindful choices that nourish your body, not depriving yourself. I've learned that even in my later years, eating better isn't just about keeping my weight down. It's about keeping my body strong, my mind clear, and my energy up. Start simple, start small, and take one step at a time. You'd be surprised at what a difference it can make. As I've gotten older, I've come to realize something important. We can't always control the cards we're dealt in life. Genetics play a part, and there's no denying that some of us are just born with a certain set of health challenges. My grandmother lived to be 102, and she had a strong constitution. On the other hand, my uncle didn't make it past 70. He had heart trouble from a young age, and his health was never as robust as my grandmother's. That's just the way it goes sometimes. But as much as genetics play a role, I've also learned that we don't have to sit back and just let fate decide our future. There's this tendency among some folks to believe that once they reach a certain age, that's it. They've done their time, and their health is just going to deteriorate from here on out, no matter what they do. But here's the thing. I've seen people beat the odds. I've seen folks in their 80s and even 90s who are still sharp as a tack and spry on their feet. And I've seen people in their 60s who, because they gave up on their health, deteriorated much faster than they should have. It's not just about what's in your genes, it's about what you do with what you have. Take my neighbor, for example. He's in his mid-80s, and when I first met him, he had trouble even walking up his driveway. He was overweight, had high blood pressure, and his doctor had told him to cut back on salt and sugar. But instead of resigning himself to poor health, he decided to take action. He didn't jump into a heavy exercise regimen right away. He started small. He began by walking a little more each day. Then, he made some changes to his diet, cutting back on processed foods and adding more vegetables. Slowly but surely, he started to feel better. Today, he's not only walking without trouble, he's hiking with his grandkids, gardening, and even taking dance lessons. His doctor is amazed at how much his health has improved. It's a testament to the fact that it's never too late to take charge of your health, no matter what cards you were dealt. Of course, I'm not saying you can change everything overnight or that you can completely defy your genetics. But there's a lot you can do. Eating better, staying active, and keeping a positive mindset. These are all within your control. You don't have to just accept that you're going to decline with age. By making small but consistent changes, you can turn the tide. It's about choosing to live well, regardless of what's in your genes or what the world tells you is inevitable. You have more power than you think. The key is in taking those first steps and not looking back. Looking back at everything I've learned, I've realized that the most important thing we can do for ourselves, no matter how old we are, is to take action. It's easy to sit back and wait for things to change on their own, but the truth is nothing changes unless we do. I've seen far too many people, especially as they age, fall into the trap of waiting for the right moment, waiting for the pain to go away, waiting for someone else to help them. But the truth is, we are the ones who need to take the first step. The earlier we start, the better off we'll be. You see, it's never too late to make a difference in your life, but the longer you wait, the harder it becomes. I remember a few years ago, a neighbor of mine, Paul, was in his early 60s, and he was already dealing with high cholesterol, high blood pressure, and diabetes. He used to tell me, "I've lived my life, it's too late for me to change now." It broke my heart to hear him say that because I knew what was coming. Sure enough, a few years later, he had a heart attack. Luckily, he survived, but that moment was a wake-up call for him. He realized that the longer you wait, the more damage can be done, and sometimes the consequences are far worse than if you had taken action sooner. But here's the good news. Even if you're later in life, you can still make a significant difference. You don't need to be a superhero or a fitness guru to change things around. It starts with small, intentional choices. Taking a walk every day, choosing a healthier meal, reaching out to a friend to stay socially active, or simply sitting down and taking time to reflect on your life and your goals. It doesn't need to be overwhelming. What matters is that you make a commitment to do something every single day. Over the years, I've realized that taking action isn't just about health or fitness. It's about taking charge of your life. I've seen how the people who thrive are the ones who keep pushing, no matter what. Even when they have setbacks, they get back up and try again. When you take action, you take back control of your future. You're telling yourself, "I'm not done yet. I'm not going to let age define me." So, I want to encourage you. If you're listening to this and thinking it's too late to make a change, I want to tell you that it's never too late. It's the small steps you take today that will shape the life you live tomorrow. Don't wait for the perfect moment, because that moment may never come. Start now, take action, and see just how much you can change your future. You've got it in you. Believe me. As I've shared throughout this video, I've learned that life doesn't stop at 75, and neither does the opportunity to live a full, healthy, and vibrant life. In fact, this is the time when we need to take control more than ever. Our health, our mindset, and our future are shaped by the choices we make today. It's never too late to start making those changes, no matter what age you are. By staying active, taking care of our bodies, keeping our minds sharp, and building a strong social support system, we can not only add years to our lives, but also make those years worth living. It's all about taking action, staying consistent, and not waiting for life to happen to us. The most powerful thing I've come to realize is that we don't have to accept aging as a decline. We don't have to resign ourselves to the idea that our best years are behind us. In fact, some of the most fulfilling, rewarding years of life can happen when we decide to take charge of our health and well-being. Sure, we may not be as young as we once were, but that doesn't mean we can't feel young at heart, keep our bodies strong, and our minds sharp. I hope you take some of these tips to heart. Remember, even small changes can have a big impact. It's about making a decision today to live better tomorrow. Start with one small action. Maybe it's a short walk, a phone call to a friend, or cutting back on a sugary snack. Do that every day, and you'll be amazed at the difference it makes. The goal isn't perfection, it's progress, and it's never too late to start. Before I finish, I want to take a moment to encourage you to subscribe to our channel, Elderly Hacks. If you're watching this video and you're ready to make a change, we have a lot more to offer. Our channel is dedicated to helping seniors live their best lives. Whether it's tips on staying active, eating healthier, or simply staying positive and engaged in life. We know that aging doesn't have to be a downhill journey. It can be a time of growth, adventure, and new beginnings. And we're here to share those ideas with you every week. So don't miss out. Hit that subscribe button and make sure to watch our videos regularly for more tips and hacks to improve your life as you age. You don't have to do this alone. Join a community of people who are taking action and living life to the fullest. We're here to guide you, support you, and cheer you on every step of the way. Together, we can make these later years some of the best yet. Thanks for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.